What is the one quality that you need most to have a healthy, intimate marriage? That's what we're talking about today.
Hey, thank you for clicking play on today's video. We are glad you're taking this journey with us. And today we're continuing our conversation about marriage, about having a healthy marriage, a flourishing marriage, one that's fruitful, that is growing and maturing. And just like you said at the very beginning, there is one quality that if you were going to focus on nothing else, but you could only focus on one thing, what do you need to focus on? And that quality is communication. Healthy marriages are marriages where that two people really communicate well, because communication really leads to what we call warmth in a marriage relationship. Healthy communication is what builds intimacy, compassion, warmth. And what we mean by that, it's kind of an abstract. It is more feeling than fact. It's not easy to define, but we know it when we have it, and we definitely know it when we don't have it. And some of you may have either seasons, or maybe you're in one right now where you would say your marriage is cold, like your relationship is cold. We don't need a lot of definition on that. We all kind of know what that feels like. We know what that looks like. Some of us have been there when it just feels cold between us. And so the opposite of warm is cold. And so warmth in a marriage is, again, here's probably the best way of describing it, right? It's that feeling of home. You know what I mean? Like home isn't just a place that we live. Home is like this atmosphere of safety and intimacy, and you are like, we could go anywhere and live in a house, but as of right now, like, I can't go anywhere and be home in that like family environment. You know what I mean? Like, so like you are home from like we create this atmosphere together. It's not just the walls and a floor and a ceiling. It's an atmosphere of warmth. And so when we're talking about good communication that leads to that feeling of warmth, how do we get there? Like, what are the building blocks for that?
Well, I think we find that Paul gives us some insight into these kind of relationships like we're talking about. In Ephesians 4:15, Paul he's defining what Christian maturity looks like. And he says this. He says, instead, speaking the truth in love, we will grow to become, in every respect, the mature body of him who is the head, that is Christ. And so this idea of speaking the truth in love, that I think is healthy communication in any relationship.
Yeah, wow. That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. The definition, like if you're taking notes today, the definition for healthy communication is that phrase, speaking the truth in love.
Yeah.
Which, the opposite of that would be not speaking
Right.
lies and not speaking lies in anger. I don't know if that works, but that would kind of be the opposite. So let's just kind of break that down into the building blocks. The first, speaking the truth in love. So speaking, what is... let's flesh that out.
I think we've all experienced the opposite of that in lots of different relationships in our lives. It's the stonewalling. It's even defensiveness. Like, you're not speaking, but you're blaming. You're not speaking from your heart. You're just blaming the other person. Speaking through, if you have kids, like that speaking through your children.
Not speaking to
each other, but speaking through your children in hopes that the spouse hears. And so anytime that we're not being upfront with what's on our heart, we're not allowing that to be part of the conversation, but we're withholding or even resisting, that person trying to find out what's going on with us. I think that when we're shutting down, we're not speaking.
You know what I think that looks like for me? Is not, it doesn't look like speaking, it looks like stewing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I feel like when I'm not healthy, when I'm, not whole, and maybe I haven't, spent the time I need to in prayer or Bible reading, meditation, whatever, I think I find myself stewing rather than speaking.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you, what is the thing for you that keeps you from speaking? What does that look like? For some people, it's like withdrawal. It's like running into their cave and retreating. Is there, for you, what does that look like for you? Or maybe not to speak for all women.
Right. No.
But like just for you personally, not speaking.
Yeah, I think it's that trying to like keep peace rather than like, it's that, well, I'm going to take the high road by not causing an argument here. Well, it's not really the high road if internally there's a battle going on. Internally I'm assuming things about you, or I'm projecting feelings and perspectives on you because I'm not actually finding out what you think or how you feel, and I'm not expressing how I think or how I feel, and so I think a lot of times we do it in the name of like peacekeeping. Well, I'm just not going to say anything,
right? And we're not called to be peacekeepers,
right?
We're called to be peacemakers.
Yeah,
that's good. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And so the second phrase, so we've got speaking, so we're not going to stay silent, and which just on a practical level, right? Like that looks like if you've got to schedule a conversation, then you schedule if you got to have a weekly date night to just air out, not grievances. This isn't like, what is that, Festivus? It's not like a weekly Festivus.
Right.
No, what is that called on Seinfeld? Isn't it like Festivus for the rest of us? Something like that. Not that, but like just, and it doesn't even include, so this is just kind of coming to me. It's not just the grievances either.
Right.
It's the affirmations. It's the encouragements. Sometimes, like, that's probably more important even than speaking into conflict, speaking into affirmation. And voicing the good things, making deposits into each other's life, speaking into each other.
Yeah, I think some marriages, they have gone so long without speaking, really fully having like a real conversation. And we all know what that is. Everything's just kind of like surface or whatever, and no real deep conversation. It's hard to be the first one to break that silence, but just like decide, I'm gonna be the first one. It might be really awkward. We may have had a falling out and we're just kind of, things are tepid, but I'm gonna be the first one to say like, hey, I love you, or hey, you're a great mom, you're a great dad, or just something. It doesn't have to be like, you don't have to go write a poem and recite it. It's just decide to always be the first one, to talk and say, we're not going to live in this awkward silence anymore.
And I just on in a kind of different field, but like leadership things that I've heard, even somebody like Andy Stanley, which wherever you're at on that, that's fine. Say before, what gets rewarded gets repeated.
Yeah.
And so even not trying to like manipulate or control your spouse, but like, what I affirm, what I encourage, that speaking, the encouraging words, that's going to like foster that environment. So the second one, we've got speaking the truth, which, what that takes my mind to is just, we have to be careful that we're not speaking out of hurt or out of resentment or lies. That when we do speak, we're speaking truth.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We're not speaking baggage.
Yeah.
Because sometimes we there are things in our lives we haven't dealt with. And I think probably, coming from our perspective, there are things that I need to deal with in my prayer with Jesus before.
Yeah.
Because he's going to help me weed through what's truth and what's lies. What's what is hurt from that's just trigger. Like it's not even something like you did. It just triggered something that is unhealed hurt in
Yeah.
my own heart
Yeah.
that doesn't have anything to do
Right.
about you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so like this thing of lies, what does that even look like?
I think, just checking your filter when you're in a conversation. Everybody has filters that we use. No one is going into a conversation just purely neutral, on anything. And so, like before you decide to drop some kind of bomb into the conversation or a, kind of sarcastic, kind of comment, like check your filter and say like, why am I wanting to say it that way? What I'm saying might be something I need to speak. I need to say, like we talked, don't stay silent. What I'm saying might be important, but why do I feel the need to say it that way? And so like and even if like I haven't fully healed from something, like maybe I haven't really taken the time to go to the Lord in prayer about something that I see but just like in that moment, since you haven't dealt with it, don't bring it into this conversation. Don't bring it into this argument. Just be like, why? Okay, before I say anything, how can I phrase that differently? How can I, I just want to check my filter before I just start spewing, things into this situation.
And one of the phrases that we use, even like, especially if we're having a conflict or like you say something that hurts my feelings, one of the phrases we try to use is like, when you said blank, it made me feel. So that I'm not coming with an accusation. I'm sharing my life.
Yeah.
It made me feel like I felt when I was 10, getting so it pulls you into that to be a source of healing. And to walk that journey with me rather than making you the enemy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And we do that. And then I think this is probably going to be a controversial statement. So when we say speaking the truth, I think we have to be careful because we live in a world where it's like, my truth.
It's my truth.
It's my truth. Okay, I get it. We all have our perspectives, and our perspectives frame our reality. I understand the argument, and I get it for most part. But when I'm so focused on my truth, what I can end up doing is I can commit a suicide. I can assume I know your thoughts, your intentions, your feelings behind. And so I just make an assumption based on my truth.
Yeah.
And that's not what we're talking
Right.
about.
Or how that made me feel in my past became my truth. No, it didn't.
Right.
You chose and decided to put this banner over your life as this is what this is. It started out as something that was a feeling and you made it your truth.
And what I love about what you just said about the clean filter, like having, checking our filter, is that sometimes our filter's dirty. And when we're so focused on like my truth, well, my truth is coming through a filter that may not be clean.
Yeah.
And so we need to, there's a cleansing that needs to happen before we can accurately assess my truth. And so I thought that was just really helpful. And so the third thing.
Love, speaking the truth in love. And so obviously the opposite of loving someone is holding resentment and anger or hatred towards them or jealousy. This is, a lot of times where we don't speak the truth in love, we might be speaking the truth, but we're speaking it out of anger or with aggression in a way that's like combative. And it's not, our agenda is saying my piece or stating how, like, I want to have the last word. I want my feelings to be validated here, rather than the motive of what we're speaking and what we're expressing being, as a helper to someone or as an encourager or as a, we're in this together and we both have issues and can we talk about this, And so that would be coming at it with love. And so I think a lot of the times what we see in a relationship with two, broken people is we've made this commitment, but we both have our own baggage and our own mess. And so we might come into a conflict with each other, with all kinds of, however we're expressing anger. That can be like rage. I mean, it can be aggressiveness. It can even be like flooding the whole conversation with, blame and negativity and all of that.
Yeah, and I think, you said it just a second ago. We come with an agenda. Love doesn't have an agenda.
Right.
Like love doesn't seek its own agenda.
Yeah.
Like, if you want to, like, I know it gets read a lot in wedding ceremonies, but 1 Corinthians 13 talks all about love, that it's not self-seeking.
Yeah.
It's not boastful. It's not puffed up.
Yeah.
And so when we come with an agenda of, like you said, speak my peace, and I got to get, then suddenly love is lost there, and we're speaking out of something else, whatever it is: anger, hurt, resentment, confusion. And so just taking a moment even to just, from our perspective, like inviting the love of God into our lives, and living in a place. And I think this is probably a bigger key than even like you find yourself in a conflict or something. I think it's just continually living in a receptive posture of the Father's love, of the love of God flowing into us, that allows us to then operate and relate to each other, not from a place of needing love, but from a place of being loved.
Yeah.
So I can love you because my worth, value, identity is not built up on you.
Yeah.
It's built up on Christ. And from him I receive love so that I can love. And from him you receive love so that you can love.
Yeah.
I think that just let's put it this way: the best thing from our perspective, healthy communication, that you can do to have a healthy marriage is to be a healthy follower of Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's going to position you to speak the truth in love.
Yeah.
And so, any closing thoughts before we close off our video today?
I think a big takeaway in this is, we can't understand what filter we're trying to use in situations until we examine our lives and our hearts ourselves. And so, it's really like, pop psychology to talk a lot about like manipulative personalities and narcissists and things like that. But I would say that we all have that in us. It's not just a mental health conversation. It is how we are. We all have, like we were talking about, agendas. We all come into relationships with our own needs, with our own expectations, and really like examining our heart and saying like, I don't ever want to come into a conversation with you or anything in our relationship with manipulation and an agenda. I don't ever want to come into it and say, well, I'm going to talk about this, and because I know by the end of it, you're going to see it my way, and I'm going to feel, justified. I'm going to feel vindicated in my feelings. I don't ever want to come in. We do that if we're not careful, but I don't ever want to do that. And so, examine your own heart. It's not just the scary, like manipulative people out there that have relational issues. We all have those kinds of things. And we really, in order to understand our filter, we have to examine ourselves first, not examining the other person first. Let them do that with the Lord, examining ourselves and saying like, in what ways do I try to manipulate relationships or get my agenda across,
That's so good. That's good. One last encouragement, really just speaking hope today. We've all heard it said that hurt people. And that's true. Many of you have probably experienced that. Like people who have been hurt or living in a state of hurt tend to hurt other people. But you know what's also true? Healed people bring healing to other people. Healed people. So focusing on, like you were saying, our filter, receiving from God, letting him, dealing with that, what that's going to do is it's going to sow healing into the marriage, even into the relationship. So just like focus on your healing, focus on good communication, speaking the truth in love. So easy to remember, so good. So, well, thank you so much for, again, watching today. If this has been helpful, click the like button, hit the bell for notifications when we post new videos, and then make sure you're subscribed and share this with your friends and family, and just kind of help us spread the word about what we're doing here on the Hope and Josh YouTube channel. So thanks, everybody. Have a great day.